for the last time. Only because, God, when you meet people a few times up here, Jesus Christ, they're so snotty, it's ridiculous. Yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before? Right, and I'm only between two rocks because the wind is coming from that direction, and I suppose it would damage the audio. Okay, now, Ralph's schism is a bit drip, drip, drip. Bit of a drip, but drip, drip, drip. Watching paint dry. Maybe even managing to hold some tension, which was never the intention. Oh, that's quite poetical. Anyway, 3 or 4 months ago, I put a few pages on Ralph's schism that are incomplete, and made a couple of videos and a couple of audios. Reference Zoe, it's Chloe Hajimanu and her attack on Raynor Winn. Now, there is no question about it that Raynor Winn. Well, let's just start with the first thing. Okay? I mean, they are disgraceful. I very much doubt, and I think said lady is getting paid to come and do a talk at some point, not far from here, on her unearthing this scandal. Now, at no point does she say, I mean, talk about a sexist bitch. At no point does she say, well, if two people are living together as a supposedly really tight couple for many years, he, even if he doesn't appear on the copyright page, must take just as much responsibility. There is no question that, I mean, because I care about the rural areas which have been decimated by the Raynor Winds moving in, but I'm going to get to a better one in a minute. Because they don't work together, they don't work with ordinary people to protect the land, to restore places economically. If you've got your Raynor Winds, I think she had 10 acres or something. If you've got that kind of sized land, you don't get much money out of it. So you need to find people who you'll have proper accommodations with over time. Even if it's mutual benefit. And I'm not talking about fanny benefit, I'm just talking about, okay, you can go down for having the old wood burner when we upgrade it for the tourists. Now, we'll come to that in a moment. No, they can't do that. I saw them come into my pest area over 20 years. Now, let's quickly get to the point. Now, as soon as, actually I didn't know, but as soon as I read that book, it's like, there's nothing in this book. It's just vapid. Nothing. Because dealing with the moth and Raynor Winds is actually the only interesting thing about the rural areas of Britain, which I've been doing for 20 years. Much longer, really, but anyway, let's get to the point. So anybody who's renting out the the shed, and no problem with me. I could live here. I could happily live. I could put a tarpaulin over, find a way of keeping warm. I could go and rustle a sheep and lie in its freshly cut open body and warm myself up. And I'm actually being serious. But I don't go in for that kind of thing, or rather, if I ever did, I certainly wouldn't be putting it on YouTube to show off like so many blokes do, except they do such a wanky version of everything. Let's keep to the point. So anybody who's ripping off tourists, but more importantly than that, so they bought their dream place and they wanted to share it, which means, I mean, this is the epicenter of this whole region. We want to share our beautiful little cutesy country lifestyle, meaning they want to charge more than a bed and breakfast is worth, likely not even a damp course in some shed, not even double glazing. No, I don't care about that kind of thing, but at least a bed and breakfast, you get those kinds of things. And it's all about, they come into our lives, they share our lives. Anybody who ever believes that bullshit, because that started in the pristine Kington, not so much Kington, Hay-on-Wye area 20 years ago. you're dealing with the kind of lowest kind of con artist, because it's all a PR con. But also, they'll all say, they probably even go to council meetings and say, oh, it's terrible that there's no affordable housing for the young people, when actually their activity has put up the cost of rents, because they always charge much more than they should. So, your Raynor Winn types. But I'm sorry, if you're looking at non-fiction books about this same theme, living a supposedly somehow free or despite the beast corporate capitalist system, which clearly Raynor Winn was very, and Moth were very much part of. Clearly, even though the whole PR. I mean, you get these people coming, they've been, as of 15 years ago, the whole of the rural areas were just full of them. They had this whole PR image, and it's all made up. I've known one or two who are the real thing, and that's it. And I've been on the fringes of loads of these people. But if you're going to be attacking non-fiction books, you should actually attack one which is 10 times worse. Now, he didn't get as much, as many sales, but 4 or 5 years ago, a book. Now, you can actually even say this book is virtually sponsored by the BBC. Now, that's not technically true, but he only got the commission because he worked for the BBC. And this man would be, for years, doing things on the BBC and in other arenas, speaking about the lovely, wholesome, homespun communities in these areas. Exactly the kind of thing that attracts walkers, visitors, way before Raynor Winn was even had done her embezzlement, which is a disgrace. Anyway, the theme park. And what man more than anybody, I think, now, he was commissioned to write a great big hardback, the Bible on what actually happened to the counterculture, meaning people just like Moth Winn, actually, although I'm quite sure he was just an ordinary, nerdy, spotty, Atari computer addicted lad from the suburbs, and he recreates himself to become a musician or something like that. He clearly looks like it now. I mean, the March is just, as of 15 years ago, full of people who look like this man. But they're all from the towns, and they are all selling a totally false version to either get interest in some music, which is always crap, their tourist destinations, which they call them, what do they call them? They call them, oh yes, shepherd's huts. The prices, right. But there's one thing that's unforgivable. Places like where Raynor Winn used to live, in Wales, never mind where she apparently lives now, up above Gweek. They've been decimated the last 20 years by hard drugs, which started with their parents, the Castle Martin Common kind of rave, well, they were just fucking nightclubbers, but they went and called themselves ravers. Yes, guzzling chemicals. And then gradually it got into really kind of nastier stuff. Even if you're in the marches, I'm told by a neighbour I used to have, who was one of these people actually, still a stupid total marijuana, total addict, aged about 68. Yeah, you're getting into the territory now where people are getting very, very serious things like, probably not quite fentanyl yet, sprinkled on their drugs. Now here's the point. In the rural areas, there are no services. I actually knew the woman who was in charge of the drug and alcohol services in Hereford. And it's a huge area. And this woman was absolutely off her rocker. Yeah, she was a child at the age of about 50 odd. There are no services. The people are terribly unsophisticated. You have all of these Moth Winn kind of people who come in, who wouldn't know how to parent a child if they were, I can't think of a joke. They have no wisdom, they have no tough love for their children. They are just all totally and utterly about trying to sell a false version of themselves. So that means the young people have got nobody to mentor them, to look after them, to guide them when they end up in trouble with these drugs. Now, this man, Ian Marchant, writes this so-called book about the counterculture, but also he would be currently doing broadcasts on Radio 4 to kind of get interest in this theme. Now, his book, I kind of scanned through a good deal of it when it came out. Well, first of all, it's based on a man who has nothing to do with the area, who just sets himself up as some kind of blacksmith homespun guy. I know him, I knew him, or kind of spent enough time encountering him. Only for women. I think he was from London originally, if not. He's from a town, quite a big town. Only for women. It's all just to get women, to shag women. He's a real lowlife. And he told me in person, and I have a recording of it, that his main passion in life is actually guns. So he's got nothing to do with the counterculture. But here's the thing, now, he's one of the clever ones, despite completely prostituting this whole myth. Well, it did exist 30, 40 years ago, a bit. This decent people being alternative, which didn't mean drugs, it just meant not buying into the capitalist lifestyle. I'm not even going to call it the counterculture, because, anyway, to the point. This book, it basically almost celebrates hard drugs. And it's aimed at a region where there are no services, there are many young people just really in a mess. I'm talking about for 20 years now, with these drugs. And nobody goes for him, nobody went for him. I very much doubt any of your journalists even bothered to critique him. Now, I'm pretty sure I've missed a few things out here. And I'm going to write an essay about this at some point, and I can tell you for a fact he will go for me. He will try it, but I have got a little trump card of this man actually committing without a doubt. Now, I'm as good as assumption. I kind of have got a feeling for where the law is when it's actually in reality, in context. And he committed a vicious, certainly a public order offence, if not a criminal slander, which I wrote about a day or two ago. But I'm going to fully write about this at some point with the recording. I have the recording. I have to find the recording. Well, no, I can find it. It just takes time. So the point being is, if you're a supporter of Raynor Winn, now it's terrible what she did. I've got lots of recordings speaking with all women about how they feel worse than hurt. No, see, I've fallen into the trap. This Zoe, this Chloe has done a bad job here. You know, it's them, the two of them. I mean, for God's sake, they spent most of their time together, clearly for years and years. They wrote that book together. Even if she was the one who sat down and wrote it out over an hour or two every morning, he would have been part of it. So they, Chloe going for them, or going for her rather than making it about them, is a vile sexist act. Get her sacked from the Observer, A, but much more importantly, okay, even with her millions, I mean, it's quite obvious that Raynor Winn is a bit of a kind of dopey one, a bit kind of false. I've known lots of people like that. They're not secure because they're in an environment that isn't a natural environment. She was from the suburbs originally. When they should be going for the people like Ian Marchant. And there are a few things that we'll put together. But no, of course they don't dare. See, because Ian Marchant's got a little bit of kudos at not only the BBC, and Hay Festival, and Pristine has a posh upper class music festival. You know, they're cleverly marchants. I mean, he's been at that for 30 years with several of his mates also, who all recreated themselves. They're all from Essex originally. They colonised Prestige and set up little festivals, which again was just to get the bells. And they've colonised the whole damn place, and they've created a myth around them when they're actually vicious capitalists. All they care about is their house price, etc. Right, I'm freezing to death, or my hands are, so I've got to go now. But if you care about your Raynor, or rather, if you're wondering about did she really deserve to be entirely singled out, she certainly did not. Fallen into the trap again. That's what Chloe's done, you see. They did not. Never mind H is for Hawk and all these other con books.